One important aspect I think a lot of people miss is training with one hand shooting. You know, we go to the range, we get our proper grip, we get our two-handed grip, we fire our rounds into a static target, and we call it a day. And we can shoot a lot of rounds like that. But if you'll look at a lot of the different shootings that go on, a lot of times it's a one-handed shooting situation. Even good guy or bad guy. Defending yourself quickly, thrusting out and firing your handgun. So it's really important to train for that. Now, if you're able to get that two hands, you have a much steadier platform. But a lot of the experts will tell you that you go down to your lowest training denominator. That means your lowest level of training, that's where you usually go for. So you really need to learn and make sure that you're practicing your one hand. But not only one hand, but also your weak hand, whether it's right or left. You need to make sure that you're training, shooting in those positions as well. Now, studies have also shown that in most shootings, the extremities are the ones to typically get hit. Your arms, your legs, outside of your body. This could incapacitate your hand. So whether you're trying to load or trying to bring your hand up, it could keep you from being able to do that. This is especially important with your concealed carry options. Whatever you're carrying for your concealed carry, you need to definitely train with this method. When shooting the Glock 26, I was shooting it steel. And so I wanted to make sure that I was hitting my target. You could hear the report. And really just focusing on that front sight, getting your sights lined up. You know, in a really high stress, adrenaline filled situation, you're just grabbing that gun and putting it up. You have got to train yourself to get a hold of that front sight before you pull the trigger. People have missed each other within 5 feet, just reaching up and just firing their handgun. So being able to get it up there, get that front sight lined up, and then fire your round. All of that is going to come with training and only with training. So it's really important to get that sight right in line. With the SIG P290, I was firing at a target. So I was aiming, wanting to go ahead and see if I was hitting that target and seeing what kind of groups. Of course, it's a pretty wide group, but the fact is getting that front sight, I was able to hit the target every time. I would definitely suggest that you try this dry firing first. In fact, dry firing is a very important part of training. You're learning how the trigger feels in your hand, you're putting your sights on target, you're pulling the trigger without all the gun smoke, without all the recoil, with the flash. This is while you're at home, making sure, of course, the gun is safe, double checking, triple checking, making sure that you're not firing this with a round in the chamber, but dry firing it at specific times, very regimented, but yet it's very necessary. Now, one of the other important elements about having a handgun that you've only got one hand that you're able to operate the gun is that how are you going to load the gun if the magazine runs dry? Especially with concealed carry pistols, because most of them have very minimal sights, is to make sure that rear sight has a shelf on it. And the reason why you want that shelf is you want to make sure you can cock the pistol on your belt, on your shoe, or any object that you can load it. And you want to make sure you, just like you do, is let it go. Don't ride it forward, because if you do, you could cause a malfunction. Now, these can be practiced dry, which is fine, but you really need the feel of having a dummy round or a snap cap in your magazine. Because if you do this with your loaded rounds, that could be a problem. So before you start trying it, you definitely need to do it just like you would dry firing, but do it with dummy rounds. Now, really, to accomplish this, especially with your belt, because your belt is going to be the #1 place that you need to cock it if you have to. You're going to need a really good solid belt. This is a bull leather belt by DalTechForce.com. I did some reviews on these a few years ago. I have had this belt for 7 years and I've used it daily. I have a number of these and they're fantastic. I'll have the link down below on where to get these. Great belts, super tough bull hide leather. Getting the rear sight right on the edge of that belt. And I'm cocking it. Now, as you can see, the round is in the chamber. And you just practice that. Just grab a hold. We're going to check it. Yes, the dummy round was in there. then it holds open. One of the things a lot of guys are trying to do is to just minimalize your slide stop. I know a lot of 1911 guys, they're trimming that way down to make it really thin. While that's really great at the range or, you know, combat shooting, if you're just out shooting, it keeps this really slick. The problem with that is, if you're having a hard time getting a hold of that slide stop, that could be a problem if you only have one hand. But your pistol is going to be in this position, so it's really important to be able to manipulate that slide stop if you need it. I can't stress how important it is to train without live ammunition. Getting your technique down, knowing how this thing functions, how it works, keeping that finger and thinking about keeping that finger out of the trigger guard. If you start with your finger in the trigger guard and you're racking that slide, it could easily go off. Also, you want to practice racking your slide on your belt, on your shoe, and on these places with your weak hand as well. Making sure you're getting on that leather strap. There we go, all the rounds expended, and that's with weak hand. Now you can see, if I'm fiddling around, that could definitely happen. And if you're trying to clear that, it could be a real problem. You definitely need to remove your magazine. Already the round is ready, but the problem is you only had one hand, so this magazine just fell to the ground. You're gonna have to pick up your magazine and hold your handgun with one hand. You're gonna need to find a surface, and usually that's right here, on your stomach or on your leg, and then run it forward. And of course, that can also be done on a hard surface, if you're next to your car, next to a building, even on the ground. Your magazine's laying on the ground. You can use your feet as well. If this hand's out, what I can do is grab my magazine, put it against my shoe. I'm ready to go if there's already a round here. If not, I can rack the slide. But I can promise you this, your magazine will never be oriented in the right position. So you're gonna have to be able to manipulate it, get it into position, take your handgun and bring it around. The less you have to move your hand around your gun, the better. Keeping it in a shooting position is really important. If you can orientate that magazine to where it's not out of sync with your hand, which is going to be very difficult to do if it's on the ground or on a hard surface. Now, all that juggling around, you're really asking for it. But the problem is, this is where training comes in. And it's an area for my own self that I need to train more in, obviously. Plus, any training you can do without ammunition is a bonus. Dry firing, taking these magazines and loading them and unloading them, putting rounds in the chamber with dummy rounds or without a magazine. You can also do it that way. The big thing is, though, with dummy rounds is you actually get the feel of the cartridge going in. And that's really important because you could be practicing without a magazine and then when it comes down to it, slip right over that cartridge. So make sure you train as close as possible, and before you go out and start live fire shooting and loading your handgun like that, I'm telling you guys, you need to practice, 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 because most ranges aren't going to let you do that anyway. So do that in the safety of your own home with dummy rounds. One thing that I'll highly encourage you to do is to watch actual shootings where surveillance cameras have picked it up, and watch what happens, especially with like a store, when a convenience store gets robbed, how the criminals come in, how the guy in the store will defend himself, and watching these things. It will really open up your eyes to what's possible, because these things happen so fast, it's incredible. And you need to have all your tools together in your tool bag, and the more you have and the more practice and training that you've done, your chances for survival are greatly increased. It's really what inspired this video, watching these guys having to shoot with one hand. So guys, get out there, train, be ready. You're the good guy, so you need to make sure that you're ready to stand against evil. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. So being able to actually manipulate, and if you happen to be a bad guy watching this video, you better pay attention to that before you see that.